the kingdom of Dahomey unapologetically participated in this transatlantic slave trade, profited from it, and really refused to give it up for as long as possible out of their own agency and not because just they had to because of the Europeans. The Woman King is based on the Dahomey Kingdom, which was founded in 1600 in what is now modern-day Benin. The Dahomey kings worked very hard to expand their territory by conquering neighboring towns and other kingdoms by use of a very professional, 15,000 deep, armed with European weapons military. And they were going to different kingdoms, neighboring towns, raiding them of slaves and conquering them. And some of the kingdoms that they conquered were actually on what's called the Slave Coast, on the coast of Benin. And when they conquered those kingdoms and incorporated them, they then became some of the head honchos in the transatlantic slave trade with the Europeans. So in return for gunpowder, rifles, tobacco, alcohol, etc., they were giving slaves, giving human beings that were then going to be taken to the New World by the Europeans. This is the door of no return in Benin. A practice that really struck me, that made me sick to the stomach, that I read about when I was researching the Dahomey Kingdom, was that before they would give these enslaved people to the Europeans to take to the New World for all kinds of untold tortures, they would make them walk around a tree of forgetfulness several times to try to wipe them of all memories of their homeland, of their lineage, to make them blank canvases for the European masters, because the Dahomey kings were concerned that these people would come back in the form of spirits that would be angry for being sold and, of course, stripped of their birthright, stripped of their culture and heritage. And it sickened me so much as a product of the transatlantic slave trade, because there's so much history that we have lost, so much pain that we have endured, and that there was a practice to deliberately create this for us, at least in the Dahomey kingdom. So when I see the previews for the Woman King and I see strong Black women who are part of one of the strongest military at the time in West Africa, who are kicking butt and taking names later, it's hard not to get excited. But then I think about what they were training for, which was slave raids, to pull people from their land, possibly forever. And that makes it a lot harder to be so excited about the symbolism. And I can only hope that they're going to do justice to that in the film and to showcase what was really happening. This is Dahomey King Gezo, who John Boyega will be portraying, and he was staunchly against ending the slave trade. Even when the British came in like 1833, because, you know, they were like, oh, we stopped slave trade, so you need to stop it too, even though, of course, they were some of the main perpetrators of the slave trade. But he said, I can't do that because this is the glory and the wealth of my people.
Those who are asking for reparations for colonialism, and they're wondering, you know, $100 billion, $24 billion here and there, 500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you are, you know, you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa, and when across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages. Absolutely. That's where they should start.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
The African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people.